Can you hear us now? Okay. So we had a motion and a second for approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. We just need to hear on yours. Yes, okay. All right. Next item is item 4. This is a public forum. This is for any item that is not on the agenda.
Ryan, we have a 3.2.
Oh, man. 3.2 got me off guard. 3.2, the resolution. This is the Planning Commission annual meeting dates and times. Did everybody read that in the packet, or do we need to read over it? There's no change from this evening's or this year's plan. Is everybody okay with annual meeting dates and times?
Yes.
Do we need any further?
That's part of the consent agenda.
Oh, so it was on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I doubt
So-
her then, she just didn't know if we need
Yeah.
to cover that one individually.
No, you're good.
Okay, we're good. Okay, public forum. This is any item that's not on the agenda. So if you heard an item on the agenda, we'll get to that here in a minute. If you'd like to address us about an item not on the agenda, you're welcome to step up to the microphone and give us your thoughts on those. I think everybody's here for an agenda item. So we will move on to our agenda items. Item 5.1 is a public hearing. This is WICP Payson Tech Subdivision's request to consolidate 7 parcels totaling 25 and roughly ½ acres. I'm not going to read the parcel numbers. Those will end up in the minutes because there's lots of them there. And they're consolidating those into 4 lots, each totaling 5.9 acres or more. This is on North Main Street, just the other side of I-15 past the bowling alley there. And they are looking at where it's located in the I-1 light industrial zone. So.
All right, thank you for that introduction. To give you a little bit of feedback on where this area is, I have this map that has this fun technology way to zoom in. So this area here, the area just north and west of the interstate is the old bowling alley. I think it's still in operation, but anyways, the bowling alley there.
Current.
And so this would just be just north of that, where you can see that pinpoint in gray. That's where the subdivision is proposed to be. As was stated, approximately 1130 North Main Street. Those are the parcels that would be consolidated and then subdivided. And this would be a 4-lot industrial subdivision. So I just want to make that known that it's industrial, not residential or anything of that nature. The zoning is consistent for what is wanted to be done there, being light industrial. The 3 outstanding issues would not prevent this body or city council from making a decision on this. We would just need those things resolved and completed before they actually record the plat at the county. And so those things in question there would be the approval from the Army Corps of Engineers for the wetlands. There's a portion of wetlands in the northeastern corner of the property. And then the applicant also needs to obtain final approval from UDOT for access to the property, since Main Street there is a UDOT road. And then fairly typical, the last bullet down there is the applicant just needs to meet all the red line concerns and comments as it progresses. So I oriented the plat in the same direction as the parcel map so that you can understand how it's laid out. So this curve road here is right here. And so those 7 parcels would become these 4 parcels with a cul-de-sac coming into the center. Any questions on that layout? It's a little bit confusing, but I wanted to orient it all the same way. No? Okay.
I mean, it seems like it's probably not the greatest access, but I get why they're doing it that way. So
Staff recommends a positive recommendation to the city council for this 4-lot subdivision, conditioned upon all the outstanding approvals from outside authorities, Army Corps of Engineers, UDOT, and all red lines are addressed prior to the recording of the plat. With that, any questions? Okay.
Organizing. Okay. So if we have no questions for staff, this is a public hearing. We need a motion to open the public hearing.
Ryan, I know that the applicant wanted to say a few things as well.
Would you like to address this prior to the public hearing? I'm not sure. Are you the applicant on that one?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
So.
If you want to step up to the mic, give us your name. We should.
Sure. Mark Weldon, good evening, from WI Commercial Property. We are from Linden, Utah. We have approximately 2 million feet of commercial property in the state. Been in business 35 years. We have a lot of experience in this space. I think staff and some of your team at Payson went up and visited a few of the people that run the city of Linden, from the mayor to the city manager, the development manager, and got a good background on us. So before we bought this property, we had a tour with your mayor. And I want to say Robert came up, as well as maybe Brian from Economic Development. So we got a feel for what we like to provide in our developments, which is a campus. And we don't like through traffic going through a campus because many studies have been done on industrial and office buildings that through traffic makes them least desirable to rent. So we would like, obviously, we're making a plat for 4, because when you do one building, it may be in excess of $10 million. So one banking facility isn't going to loan on all 4. So that's, to answer your question, that's why we kind of divided it up with a cul-de-sac. We don't have any cul-de-sacs in our properties. We met with a constraint because of some of the rules in Payson whereby in order to have access, you have to have 100 feet. So they came up with the cul-de-sac, and we were requested to build it and turn it over to the city for maintenance and so on. We rather not. We rather build it and keep it and own it and maintain it and give use to it to fire, life safety, whatever asset or facility management that the city needs, but we rather still own it and maintain it and build it to a UDOT type specification. That would be our preference. So one of the constraints that we had when we bought the property, we did an ALTA survey. So we've developed maybe 50 to 60 buildings like this around the country. We normally build them and keep them. We don't sell them. So we did an extensive background due diligence inspection period, which included geotechnical, all types of specialty trades in construction, from feasibility studies such as electrical, civil, architectural, soils, background work with ownership. We interviewed the seller. We were told there was a spring on the property. The ALTA survey came in and the title insurance came in with a spring. We even had a couple meetings with the city of Payson as an introduction meeting, as a feasibility. We didn't know it turned into be a wetland. That's the surprise on us. So as soon as we found out there was a wetland, we had to hire a wetland specialist to come out and study the wetland. The good thing is there's 2 small wetlands. Each of them are less than 1/10 of an acre. So by Army Corps of Regulations rules and their best practices, normally 1/10 of an acre is delineated very fast. Although there's a 45-day notice period, and it also required us to do a Indian burial ground. Archaeologist came in and did some validation on the area, so we passed that. We made our application. However, Army Corps of Engineers may take as long as they want, even though We have a 45-day window when we submitted, which was about 30 days ago. And they owe us a response, but we may not get a response for a year, which is really unfortunate. So that's a really big constraint. We would ask that we would know that when we had the spring, we right away did a SWIP out there. So we put 2 barrier fences and created a double barrier with a good 50 feet from the said spring before we even knew it was a wetland. And we hired Wind River Excavation to manage that. We have another really good SWIP company that does monthly reports, even though there's no construction. We were doing the right thing. We just fear that it could be a long time. And we would like to be able to get our plat, get our financing, have a subdivision. If we have to wait for Army Corps of Engineers, this project may be pushed back for years. We just don't know when. We have no approval from them. And we're building in Florida right now, a project on the intercoastal. An Army Corps of Engineers specialist was supposed to similarly give us an answer. There was a 90-day. They kept on the 85th day turning it to another engineer. Year and a half later, we finally got help from Governor DeSantis, who made that problem go away and donated the land to us, actually. So that's one problem. The other problem is that the city of Payson staff and UDOT have had many meetings as to what the scope might be on that road and the requirements. One of our requirements that's called out by UDOT is to make application to them, and we did. Not our first attempt of doing this, or many times we've done it with professionals that are licensed and they're traffic engineers. So we made our professional application. We hired Dominion Civil Engineering, and they came in and made a plan that was provided to UDOT. Well, 4 meetings after that, every time they approve it, our latest one yesterday, they probably want about a $4.5 million improvement on the road. And for us to fix that entire road, which there's other people that benefit from this road, our neighbors to the east. One of our neighbors to the east is Payson Sewer Plant. The other one is Payson Electric Plant. The other one is UDOT. There's no drainage on the road, none whatsoever. But UDOT says, well, Mark, why don't you just make the drainage? You take all the drainage, you put all the grates in, you take all the drainage from all the road and put it on your property and you deal with it. So I'm telling you, we're working with the people at UDOT. We have another meeting. There's a little bit of friction with the people at UDOT, and Eric, who's been quite helpful, Robert knows Eric. Lately, he's had 2 or 3 meetings, and as late as yesterday and today, we've had communication. So he's on the record saying, you only have to do what the traffic study says based on state law. Unfortunately, the review and the request is nowhere near that. So I fear it could take a long time to sort that problem out. We're willing to do our part and more. We're not trying to skirt or cut a corner. We're gonna probably by the end of the project, we'll have over $45 million in your community. And we like your community, we're willing to invest in it. But I feel like we're kind of being held hostage a little bit to have those 2 requirements made when some of those requirements benefit the greater public, but they're asking me to pay for it all, which isn't so fair. So even if we got total approval and you gave us a building permit tonight, and that's not what we're asking for, we have a long way to go before we're even ready to get there. A long, long, long way to go. But if we hold up the plat and if we hold up the subdivision, it holds up future work for financing. We already bought a loan from a life company, and unfortunately, I'm here to tell you, we lost the $180,000 deposit on a loan that we purchased from a life company, because we're not going to be able to comply with their timeline, and they're not going to give the money back. So we've spent probably almost $1 million on this development. And where we think we have an answer and a resolution and an agreement with UDOT, and they come back and they change it. And then we get an approval, and we have a game plan, and they change it again. It's like that old movie Groundhog Day. It's over and over and over. So those are some of our problems. We're not quitters. You know, we're going to keep, you know, the good fight up respectfully and get these projects done. But, you know, we have a couple of requests. We can provide more documentation of our success path in other jurisdictions. You very astutely said about the cul-de-sac. We don't love the cul-de-sac, but if we're able to own that property, provide access, provide easements to the city, we'll maintain it and pay for it. The taxpayers won't have to pay for it. And you could still get the same benefit, except it would be on us to maintain it. What we didn't want is through traffic, because we've had great problems with tenants and through traffic when there's been detours in Linden, and they'll throw all the traffic through our park. So they come speeding through. It's dangerous. It's not safe. Property damage, complaints from tenants. So for that reason, we try to provide quiet enjoyment rights, less through traffic, less crime, protect the tenants that are there. So with that, if there's any questions, happy to answer any other questions. If there are none, if not, I'll.
Questions, commissioners?
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yep. Okay, now I'll take a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
Motion,
Second,
second, Commissioner Marzan, all in favor by yes?
Yes.
yes.
All right, this is the opportunity for the public to address us about this item. If you'd like to make comments, step up to the microphone. Try to keep them fairly brief, if you could please.
Richard Bailing, Supervisor Kent Nebo, Conservation District under the Utah Department of Ag. I would just say, as long as the Army Corps of Engineer make sure that you are not going to cross-contaminate the springs on the property, you'll have no problems with us. But if there's going to be any kind of cross-contamination or no way to take care of runoff water, there will be a problem. So it sounds like you got your engineers in place and everything. So before it's approved, the Conservation District may want to see that you've had your engineering taken place and it's taken care of, or we will object. Thank you.
Is there any other comments on this item? Not, entertain a motion to close public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second,
Ryan, since we have somebody online, do a roll call.
okay, so we'll do this by roll call. We'll start with you, Commissioner Warner.
Yes.
Yes.
For the yes.
Yes.
Roll, yes. Commissioner Marzan?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, public hearing is closed. Commission discussion.
So Michael, the, sorry. In the, I think it's the screen before where you have the, or one more. So the outstanding issues, are those like in the code, they have to be addressed? Or
So-
the staff recommendation?
The two top bullet points are outside of Payson City jurisdiction, UDOT and Army Corps. So the bottom one is typical on all subdivisions, all applications.
I was just curious. heard anyone ask us to.
We can't dictate to either of those
can't.
entities the approval process. So.
Well, with that being said, I'll make a motion. We recommend to city council that they approve the subdivision. And that before the plat is recorded, that these 3 issues, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, UDOT, and red lines are addressed.
A motion, do you have a second? I'll second. Commissioner Rowland, all in favor, do a roll call again. We'll start with Commissioner Marzan.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Frisbee, yes.
Yes.
And Commissioner Warner?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, that will move on to city council. And moving on to item 5.2. This is a public hearing for Title 14 Sensitive Lands Code Amendment. And this is the city requesting amendment to the Payson City Title 14 Sensitive Lands Code, address section 14.20.020 of the Stream Corridor Wetland Development Standards.
Come to everything.
Evening, Commissioners, I'm Jonathan Knight. I'm the development engineer for the city. We put this amendment to the ordinance together to help us, actually to help WICP. They were specifically their issue brought this to our attention is our current ordinance mandates a 50-foot setback from the edge of all delineated wetlands with no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We did our research. We found that other cities also have a 50-foot setback, but they also have guidelines on methods to reduce that setback. So following some of the other cities and the models that they've prepared, we kind of put together our own guidelines of a way that an applicant could reduce the setback on the wetland. Pretty easily, they could reduce it to 10 feet. And then with a few extra SWIP measures and city engineer approval, they'll be able to reduce it to 0. The Army Corps of Engineers, unless they specifically say in one of their reports or their permits that they have to maintain a setback, they typically don't require anything beyond the edge of the delineated wetland. So that's why we give the option to reduce it all the way down to 0 if needed.
Any questions for? Okay. Thank you. This is a public hearing, so motion to open public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing.
Second. Okay, all in favor by roll call. Commissioner Marzan?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Frisbee, yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Warner?
Yes.
Okay, if you'd like to address us about this item, you're welcome to step up to the microphone and share your thoughts.
Didn't realize we were going to be so busy tonight. Richard Payson, Nebo Conservation District through the Department of Ag. Here again, if you are working with sensitive land issues, we will watch, because if there is any chance of cross-contamination, problems with water rights, issues where you're not taking your water from your streets and your buildings and your parking lots and getting rid of it in the proper way, yeah, we will come in and fight that. Just again, let you know.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
And by roll call, starting with Commissioner Warner.
Yes.
Yes.
Frisbee, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Public hearing is now closed. Any commission discussion? seems pretty straightforward. I mean, I don't think we have any desire to contaminate water or anything like that, but if it can be done safely and following the guidelines, it should be great. So I make a motion that we recommend to the city council approval of the Title 14 Sensitive Land Code Amendment, as it will make the city a little easier to deal with, items regarding sensitive lands.
Second.
Second, all in favor, roll call, start with Commissioner Marzan.
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Frisbee, yes.
Yes.
And Commissioner Warner.
Yes.
Okay, now we'll move on to city council. And then item 5.3 is item that was remanded to city staff. Request by Rob McNeil for preliminary plan approval of the Springs at Spring Lake subdivision at approximately 2100 south and 500 west. The subdivision would consist of 35 single-family homes, plots no less than 15,000 square feet.
So just to kind of jog your memory a little bit, this is what the layout of the subdivision looks like. These are the parcels that would be consolidated to make the subdivision here. Approximately 12,200 or 12,240 south and 550 west. At this point, the applicant is seeking a positive recommendation for the subdivision preliminary plan. As you recall from last meeting, that they were on the agenda, they received a positive recommendation for the zone change. And so they are only asking at this time for the preliminary plan. These are some of the comments and things from the previous meeting. So not much really to be mentioned there, but I wanted to focus on this next slide, because this was some of the direction given by the Planning Commission and from the public hearing comments as to what to do with staff and for the applicant. So the first one being to explore the opportunity of another roadway that would go from the end of the cul-de-sac on the west to a northbound and connect to 1900 south. And I have a map on the next slide I can show you if that doesn't make sense. So for example, the cul-de-sac is here, proposed here in the subdivision, and the road would go up something to this effect. Payson City is against this for obvious reasons. You can see that this is laid out for a future park and fire station. And so any way you slice it on there, it's going to cut through that significantly. As well as this area here to the south of that area is a storm retention basin, future storm retention basin, which would be bisected or significantly reduced. So Payson City is against that, that suggestion. Another request was for the city to look into having another access onto SR 198. And the following is what was told to staff about that. It requires 660 feet separation from each access along there. And so the only way in which that could work is if that Y intersection, let's see if I've got that. So that Y intersection right down here would have to be eliminated to be able to put some sort of other roadway onto SR 198. Otherwise, if that wasn't done, then UDOT would not be in favor of an additional access. And I'll let the applicant, if he wants to speak to it, about how he's worked with neighboring property owners on here. Utah County also was requested to get approval by the applicant for access onto 12240 South. In your packets, you had a copy of this letter, but this letter basically states that that access would be granted, and the county sees no concerns with that. At this time, I guess if you want to hear from the applicant, you can. Otherwise, staff would recommend a positive recommendation to the city council for this subdivision. And therefore, it would go on to council both with this and the zone change.
Neil, would you like to address us?
Rob McNeil, the applicant. I feel very good that we've addressed everything that we were told to address according to the county access and looking at another alternative, which was going north up to 1900 south, which, as you know, Payson City did not like that. The land to the north has already been dedicated to a city park. And so I also know that Payson City administration did meet with UDOT again early November, like Michael had mentioned, and once again, UDOT had denied that access. And so I feel that working with staff, I have met every requirement for a subdivision. I have the 2 accesses that do work. I do have the access to the county. We have met with Jason Knapp on those accesses, and the alternative accesses just don't work out to 198 and up to 1900 south. And so I'm open to any questions that you might have for me this evening.
Questions, commissioners? Blair, Commissioner Warner, I don't know if you have any questions. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Now, this is not,
You don't have to open it up.
we can't
But
take
it's-
public comment, it's not
yes.
a public hearing.
Yes.
So it is not a public hearing, but if a couple would like to step up and provide any additional feedback since our last meeting, we'd be glad to hear that. You're welcome to step up, give us your name, and again, try to keep it brief so we can get through everybody's comments, so.
Jason, Matt, you guys are quite tired of hearing from us, and we appreciate you letting us voice some of our continued concerns. Yeah, we did have the opportunity to meet. As Mr. McNeil mentioned, I do appreciate greatly Robert's involvement in getting some help and looking at different options and trying to continue to push this through. And I understand staff's recommendation that it not go through to 1900, that would be viewed as a big loss to Payson City, and certainly not in the spirit of the win-win-win that the city council had asked us to try and find. Unfortunately, the proposal that we're left with is the win-win loss to the residents of Spring Lake. We're still left with all of this traffic from this subdivision, as well as potentially more from the north coming down through onto that very small road of 12240. And even if it's expanded right in front of the subdivision itself, everything going west from there continues to be a very narrow road and right against the lake. And it will definitely, if it is proposed to move forward and it does move forward, this will definitely be a win-win loss to the residents of Spring Lake. Additionally, I'd point out that recently the residents of Spring Lake did submit to the state of Utah a request for a feasibility study that we might consider the potential of incorporating as our own town. If that were to happen, and if we did incorporate into our own town, we would be left with the result of all of this traffic coming down onto a road that would ultimately become part of Spring Lake, that we would be left with the burden of any additional widening beyond the road or down the street, or maintaining all of this traffic flow. So again, this is just a win-win loss scenario all the way around for Spring Lake. I wanted to point out, last week, my wife and I had the opportunity to go to the Payson City Council meeting where there was a review of the proposed change to the annexation policy plan for Spring Lake, or for, excuse me, Payson. And one of the things that I found pretty interesting was when it's talking about the weighted annexation criteria. And I realize this is already past the annexation stage, but one of the things that is being recommended is consideration for annexation criteria is that a specific area plan be in place before that annexation happened. That is ironically exactly what the all of the petitioners, the 1,300 petitioners who signed the request to Payson City before this was annexed, that was our exact request, was please, let's get a specific area plan in place. Now, whether that's through Spring Lake or through Payson, again, there's just an outcry by the community that we're doing damage here. We're doing something that is irreversible, that would be much better for the overall community and area if we were able to pause and do a specific area plan, again, whether through Spring Lake or through Payson, before moving forward with this development. So I guess trying to keep it brief. One of the, I know in the in the packet that was sent out, the Planning Commission staff report, the recommendations, one of the options it said was advance a negative recommendation to the city council. This action should be taken if the Planning Commission determines the zone change is ultimate or is untimely, is one of the criteria, and that would be our request, that we pause for now. This is untimely. We need to get a plan. We weren't able to get that win-win-win that we're looking for. And before we force a win-win-lose on the residents of Spring Lake, let's pause and get a larger area plan in place. Thank you.
Helena Carter Thomas. Couple of things. I remember that it was mentioned that there weren't any wetlands on the area that he is developing. Is that right, Rob? But I'm just confused because when I look at the Utah Geological surveys with the wetland areas, it does show that, I don't know if you can see, but this whole green area right here is wetlands, and it is in the development area. So I'm just, I guess I would love to see maybe the engineering reports or things if those are available to the public. But the other thing, you know, I just agree with everything that Jason says, but also this area, you know, mentioning pausing, it would just be such a great thing to do and to come up with a plan. You know, we're kind of missing the boat on a great opportunity to make this area kind of more of an ag tourism situation that would benefit so many people. And we have, you know, all of the things that are, we've got the orchards, we've got, you know, the fish hatchery, we've got fishing, we've got, you know, the people that use, you know, take the horseback rides. There's a lot of things that, you know, we could do different, that if we go ahead with this, it is going to just stop and ruin all of those opportunities that could be great amenities to the citizens of Payson, Spring Lake, you know, everyone in the area. And I just hope that maybe we can pause and get a great plan in place.
Again, Richard Bailing, Kent Nebo Conservation District, to the Department of Ag. About 2 weeks ago, we put the city on notice that there was some issues. Can you bring up the plat map real quick? You can go back to the one of the, this one work. Good one. No, or you have a pointer? Okay, so there are some issues here. You got roads coming up this way. This road coming down this way comes down to the pond. And the follow the terrain is this direction, which means that this runoff water is going to head to the pond. You cannot drop that directly into the pond. Payson City doesn't own any of this other ground through here. So there's no place for you to put a retention pond to catch that. There is no planned retention pond here. And then you also have to worry about the fact that, as I brought up before, There is high groundwater in this area, so you can't contaminate the groundwater with what the runoff water. So you've got to either run it into a retention basin, or you've got to run it into a approved wetlands area, and that has to go through the Corps of Engineers. So we have an issue there, and you have roads running here off into areas that are not part of Payson. And you can't run your runoff water onto other private property. We got another issue there. We also have protested the opening of this right here. We put the county on notice also. You're gonna have to address these issues, or we'll fight this. Because not only do we have an issue, now it was brought up before, well, we can get an engineer to deal with the water, high water issues. Well, we're gonna require it. And because we can't allow contamination, we can't allow for downstream water users to have their water rights diminished in any way. And that includes Payson City, because the way that the water flows is down from this direction down towards the pond. And that's from experience. And so I'm letting you know at this point, we will push the county to shut that off until that's addressed. And there's no way you can address that, because you'd either have to use eminent domain or have additional property, and you don't have it. So the best thing you could do is switch where you're gonna put the park, put the park right there and leave the road out of it.
My name is Gene Carley. I'm a property owner adjacent to the development proposed here. You can see my property is down on the lower right-hand corner. My wife and I have lived on that property for the past 17 years. The developer has stated that the Army Corps of Engineers have not found that there is wetlands in this area. I can tell you from my personal experience over the years that there definitely are wetlands there. It's interesting, though, that when we are in a drought situation, we have been for some time, and who knows how long that will last, but perhaps that could be part of the reasoning of the Army Corps of Engineers. I don't know. But it seems curious to me that, I can have water in my crawl space a lot of the time, not so much this year, but in previous years, I've had problems with mold in the home. And I can tell you that this past summer, there are 2 ponds in this development shown in the large lot there. Those ponds, the one dried up for a while, but the other one stayed full for most of the summer season. Nonetheless, it's my firm belief that there are wetlands there, and that needs to be explored further, as suggested by Mrs. Thomas. The other concern I have is that no question came up, no statement made with regard to who's going to pay for the widening of 12240. Is that going to be the county? Is the developer going to pay any of the cost there? seems to me if it's the county that's doing it, that seems to be an unfair burden on the taxpayers of the county, myself included, and all the others. That doesn't seem right to me, that the developer ought to have some skin in the game. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jonathan Knight again. I just wanted to answer some of the questions that have been and problems that have been brought up. Yes, the site does naturally slope from north to south, but with construction equipment today and hydraulics, we're allowed to, change the grading of a site, and we can collect water before it leaves the property and send it to where we want it to go. And that's what Rob's engineer has done. The grading plan obviously isn't shown because this is the plat, but the grading and drainage plans do address all those issues about not cross-contaminating, not sending water to Spring Lake, not letting runoff onto private property. So those things have been addressed. As far as the wetland delineation goes, the developer has followed every law that's asked of him. He had a wetland delineation performed. He submitted to the Army Corps of Engineers, and the Corps came back and agreed with what was delineated. So we cannot legally ask him to do anything more with regards to the wetlands issue. And then as far as the roads that stub into the adjacent properties, that was the developer, trying to be considerate of the adjacent owners who potentially might want to sell and develop in the future. He doesn't have to provide, interconnection to other properties. He could put more lots there if that was the case, and so I just want the commission to understand that the developer has done everything that Payson City is legally allowed to ask him to do. The county has granted his access onto the county road. He is responsible for widening the road and improving it along his frontage. But more than that, that is not his responsibility. It's it would be above and beyond what his development would require. And so just following all the state and federal laws that we have to abide by, the developer has met with every single one of those.
Kelly Warner. I just gotta ask, hey, I bought the property. Do you believe that? Where's the proof that this has all been done? We keep hearing, yeah, it's been studied. Have any of you seen a study? Honestly, this boy's done. You have all of it? How come nobody else has seen it? Whatever. Would you make that available?
You're welcome to grandma request any.
To do what to my grandma? No, serious. What?
It's called a grandma
Anyway.
request. You're welcome to do that.
He wants to come. He wants to be in Payson. Let him be in Payson. Leave us alone. Just cut that road right there and leave it be, please.
All right. Yep, we'll give you final say.
Can you go back to the letter from the county? So if I'm
Ma'am,
correct,
what's your name?
oh, Carrie Knapp. If I'm correct, this letter is saying that that he would be granted if he still has to apply for a permit. This isn't the permit itself. So this isn't the final thing saying, yes,
you for sure have access to the road. So I think, yes, this is saying, okay, yeah, go ahead and apply for the permit, and then at that point, they would grant, or make their decision. So yes, he's talked to him, but this, I just wanted to clarify that he doesn't have a permit yet to come out onto that road.
Without the second access point, the development doesn't happen, so it would have to have that for the development to proceed. So he would have to get that approved, and if it didn't get approved, then that would forestall everything, so.
Look at the timing,
Yep.
I mean,
But he can apply for it, and if they approve it, then he'd be good, Okay, commission discussion. Michael, do you have any final thoughts? You look deep in thought over there.
I was just reading the letter.
Okay.
No final thoughts.
Yeah.
No, my thoughts are, I understand the residents of Spring Lake. I mean, I moved to Payson because it was a small, quiet town. Am I happy about the growth in Payson? I am not. I moved here because it was a small community. I believe when I moved to Payson, it was 4,700 residents or 600 residents. Part of my involvement on this commission was I can sit and cuss about my neighbors, about everything that goes on, or I can get involved and try to have some direction. It's always sad to watch development coming. I have a good friend that lives right over there off that road, and for years he's been saying, man, I hear the air nail guns coming, and I don't know what the hell to do. And we're all kind of in that situation. We don't own the property. The biggest problem we have now is farmers sell their ground because their kids don't want to farm anymore. The developers buy it. People move here because they want to get out of the city, and it creates another city. And so, yes, I'm not happy about it, but we're under some constraints here to follow the master agreement here and some of the laws and things that are in place. And to just say, because we don't want to infringe upon anybody, we're going to take the rights away from somebody that does own the property. So, I mean, we're, like I said, it's kind of a rock and a hard place type of an issue. So I understand your concerns, but the gentleman has a lot of issues to take care of because of engineering, grading, sloping, approval through the county. So there's a lot of steps to go through to make the development come through. This is just one step in the process. So that's my 2 cents.
I'm glad to see 15,000 square foot lots, because I think it's better in that area. They are very large lots, which would be conducive to nice homes. I mean, you're looking at lots as big as what's around the temple and stuff like that. So you can have some really big, nice homes in that area. And I think that would be a good fit for kind of that bumper into that zone in that area. So.
I would agree with what Kit said. Like, I do feel for the residents of Spring Lake, but really there's nothing more we can do right now. I mean, he's done everything that we've asked, even things that are outside of what the law requests or demands. So
yeah, I agree. The water runoff, I think, is a big deal, and the engineering that can be put into place to keep that water running where it's supposed to run. I mean, I obviously would keep a very close eye on that process. Traffic, I hate traffic. I came from a very crowded city, and it's brutal when traffic gets overwhelming.
Commissioner Warner, do you have any comments you'd like to?
I think probably just to say that I would agree with what I've been hearing from my fellow commissioners. The city has made great efforts to try to foresee everything that ought to be foreseen when it comes to these various developments that come before us. I feel pretty good about what they have in place. That's why these developers have to go through all of the hoops that they have to jump through in order to get even to this point of the process. So my inclination is to trust the system. I feel like it will protect those things that are concerns about drainage and so forth. And that this will get looked at with sufficient scrutiny before any development actually takes place.
Final comments prior to making a motion? We have somebody prepared to make a motion on this one.
I move that we recommend approval to city council for the request for the preliminary plan of the Springs at Spring Lake subdivision. Seeing that it fits the plan, the general plan and what we want to see in that area, and that the applicant has jumped through a lot of hoops to get to this point, and I
Have a motion, do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Frisbee. All right, a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Warner.
Yes.
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Frisbee, yes.
Yes.
Roland, yes.
Yes.
Rosen, yes. Now we'll move on to city council. Final say in that, and they will determine how that goes forward. So we appreciate you coming and sharing your thoughts with us. Moving on to item 6, commission reports, staff reports.
I hope you have a wonderful holiday.
Okay.
Final motion.
Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. All in favor, but yes.
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 Okay.
This will go to city council on January 4th.